Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. So Gemini Man, the Addams Family, and Jexi were released in theaters last weekend. Let's see how those movies did at the box office. Alright, let's jump right in. So coming in at number 1 is Joker. In the second weekend, the movie dropped about 43% to pull in 55 million at the box office over the weekend. This is the estimates, by the way. The actual numbers will come in later today. So domestic total so far is 192.7 million, and let's see how it did overseas. Overseas, it pulled in 351 million for a worldwide total of 543 million. Joker is kind of like the Deadpool for Warner Brothers and the DC cinematic universe, right? They didn't have like a high opinion, or didn't have like big hopes for this movie, because since they budgeted the movie at 55 million, right? Before superhero movies, like especially the Zack Snyder ones, and Aquaman, etc., Wonder Woman, they pour in lots of money on those movies. But for Joker, right, they only give this movie 55 million, which is like 3 million less than Deadpool's 58 million. So like I said, Joker is kind of like a proven movie for the people, the producers, director Todd Phillips, Joaquin Phoenix. This is R-rated movie, another superhero R-rated movie, and studios still views superhero movies as more for like the children, right? Family experience. And when they see an R-rated movie, just like Deadpool, right? Deadpool, they gave the movie a 58 million budget, but then it made like huge amount of money for Fox. And Joker is like I say, it's kind of like that. It's R-rated. It's kind of dark, really dark, and it is about the Joker. Really, this insane guy, this guy who fell into depravity. Who became the Joker. It's the origin story for the Joker, and they were reprehensive about it, because they thought things might happen in theaters, and they have security in the theaters to prevent anything bad from happening, right? And nothing bad happened as far as I know. And I said, this the Joker, Joker the movie is more in line with Christopher Nolan's dark and gritty movies, more grounded, more humanized characters, right? Instead, Zack Snyder took that to mean dark in the sense of really dark lighting, and and the human element is missing, I guess, from that. And as it shows, right, as the box office performance shows, it's doing really well at the box office here and abroad. And the second weekend drop is only about 43%. So, this movie has the buzz going for it. I mean, despite it not reviewing well, words of mouth, it's more kind of like a love or hated movie. People who saw it really, liked it. And there's some people who didn't think that it was all that. So there you go, one of these controversial movies, but that's, I guess, what's so great about some of these movies, movies that divide the public opinion, that you really like it or you really hated it. And Joker is one of those. And it seems like, hey, like I say, this is a proven movie for Warner Brothers, and they're gonna be more confident in releasing more darker R-rated superhero movies. Alright, coming in number 2 is the surprise movie for me, is the Addams Family. This is the animated version of the Addams Family. I say this movie could probably open somewhere between 15 to 20 million, because like the live action version didn't open that well, didn't perform that well. Like the first Addams Family movie opened to 24 million. Its sequel opened to 14 million. So and Addams, and I say, it goes to show that there might not be a huge built-in audience for this the movie version of the TV series. And I was proven wrong. As I said in the previous podcast, once you transform something into an animation, you're targeting the children audience, and that demographic don't really care about quality. They just want to care about laughs, if it looks good, and toys, etc., right? And Addams Family, this version, the 2019 version, is just that. It opened to 30.3 million, which is way higher than my 15 to 20 million projection. Reviews wise, like I said, it's cartoons of target towards kids, or kind of review proof, right? 38% on the tomato meter, B+ cinema score though. So the audience thought it was okay movie. So I'm not sure how well it'll hold up in the second weekend. We'll wait until next week to find out. But for the opening, it actually did pretty well. 30.3 million opening for the Addams Family. Of course, with the voices of Oscar Isaac, Charlize Theron, Chloe Grace Moretz, Snoop Dogg's in here as it, Beth Midler, and etc. And Martin Short as well. They're throwing serious money at this movie. I suspect this the Addams Family probably cost somewhere in the 80 to 90 million range. All right, let's move on to number 3, which is Will Smith's Gemini Man. I say this movie could probably open somewhere in the 25 to 30 million range, because, hey, Will Smith is worth something at the box office, right? Except that, it opened way less than that. It opened to 20.5 million. Reviews-wise, it's not that great. 25% on the tomato meter and a B+ cinema score. Budget is relatively high, 138 million for that, mainly because it's filmed in high frame rates. It's an action movie, explosion, car chases, and all. Fight scenes. It stars Will Smith, Clive Owen as a bad guy. I guess the biggest selling point for this movie is Will Smith fighting a younger version of himself, and they create this version of a younger version of himself through motion capture and replacing the face, etc. Right? But I read that only a third of the theaters in the U.S. can show this high frame rate version of Gemini Man. So a lot of people miss out on what make this so Gemini Man Gemini Man. And like I said in the previous podcast, that we have to go back to 2012. Men in Black 3 to find a movie which stars Will Smith, him as the lead character, movie that's about him, that which cracks the 100 million barrier. And with the 20.5 million opening for Gemini Man, poor reviews, it doesn't appear that Gemini Man will crack the 100 million mark domestically. Let's see how the movie did overseas. Okay, it hasn't opened that wide overseas yet, with only 39 million coming in for a worldwide total of about $60 million. So we'll know more in the coming weeks. Alright, let's move on to number 4, which is Abominable, DreamWorks' latest animation, which focuses on a group of Asian teens who try to help a Yeti get back to his family. Magic's involved. In this third weekend, this movie pulled in 6.2 million, a drop off about 48% from the previous week. Domestic gross is about 47 million. Okay, let's see how Abominable did overseas. Overseas, it pulled in 61 million for a worldwide total of 109 million. When it's all said and done, Abominable might close out somewhere in the 90 to 100 million range domestically, and I'm not sure how much legs it has overseas, but from the look of things, it might end up somewhere in the 100 to 120 million range. Alright, number 5 is Downton Abbey. It is the, the continuation of the TV series, Downton Abbey. In its fourth weekend, it pulled in about 4.9 million. A drop-off is about 39% from the previous week. Domestic gross is about 82 million, and let's see how it did overseas. Overseas, it pulled in an additional 70 million for a worldwide total of 152 million. I don't know what the budget for Downton Abbey is. I assume it's somewhere in the 40 to 50 million range, and if so, I count it as a success. Alright, number 6 is Hustlers, Jennifer Lopez and Constance Wu, Julia Stiles, a movie about strippers who, drug their customers and robbed them. This movie is doing surprisingly well, right? In its fifth weekend, it pulled in about 3.9 million. Drop off is about 40% from the previous weekend. Domestic gross is about 98 million, so it's closing the 100 million mark. And let's see how it did overseas. Overseas, it put in 23.6 million for a worldwide total of 121 million. The overseas figure is low because it hasn't opened that wide overseas yet, but I suspect Hustlers is a movie that would appeal to audiences overseas as well. Number 7 is Judy, the biopic about Judy Garland, starring Renee Zellweger. In its third weekend, it pulled in about 3.3 million, drop off about 29% from the previous weekend. Added a couple, 100 plus theaters. Domestic gross is about 15 million. Judy is relatively well reviewed at 83% on the tomato meter, and Zellweger is getting kudos for her role as Garland. We might see her name, Zellweger's name, pop up come awards time. Alright, number 8 is the horror movie It Chapter 2. In this 6th weekend, it pulled in 3.2 million. Let's see, domestic gross is about 207 million so far, and overseas, it pulled in an additional 238 million for a worldwide total of 446 million. Like I say, even though it didn't gross as high as the first movie, 445 million so far, it's actually pretty good since the budget for Chapter 2 is only somewhere between 60 to 70 million. Right, number 9 is the other wide releases last weekend, and that is Jexi, a comedy starring Adam Devine. This is a movie that I say could probably open somewhere in the 5 million range or lower, and it looks like it opened at the lower part of that. I mean, it opened to 3.1 million, and reviews-wise, it's pretty poorly reviewed, 11% on the tomato meter and a B- cinema score. So Jexi is Devine's first movie in a leading role. He's better known as that character in the Pitch Perfect movies, right? And as such, it's doing okay. I don't expect this movie to cost a lot, maybe somewhere in the around 5 million or if not lower range, right? So the 3.1 million is okay, right? It looks like it's probably gonna close out somewhere in around 10 million or so, 8 to 10 million in its domestic run. And like I said, Devine, I put him in the same level as Jason Bateman. He doesn't have the track record of Jason Bateman, so that's why his movie is grossing so low. As he gets more well known, who knows? He could be like a Jason Bateman. Alright, to close out the top 10, we move on to Ad Astra, which is Brad Pitt's sci-fi psychological thriller. In its fourth weekend, it dropped huge, right, to gross 1.9 million. A drop off is about 54% from its previous weekend. Domestic gross is about 47 million. Overseas, it pulled in an additional 73 million for a worldwide total of 120 million. Brad Pitt, Tommy Lee Jones, Liv Tyler, Donald Sutherland, special effects, space. This movie possibly, couldn't be cheap. I think it costs like 100 million plus or so, right? I mean, I heard that there might be some reshoots and everything, and that throws the budget out of whack. So the 120 million pull worldwide, it's not looking good for Ad Astra. Okay, of note is Parasite, the latest movie from Korean director Bong Joon-ho. The movie pulled in 376K in 3 theaters, so it has a per theater average of 125K, which is the highest of the movies at the box office right now, and it's getting really good buzz, getting good reviews, 99% on the tomato meter, and it looks like it's one of those movies that is in contention for like best foreign picture. Okay, that's it for the box office top 10. Let's move on to the new releases this weekend. We're going to have 2 white ones. The first of which is Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, starring Angelina Jolie. And then we have the sequel to Zombieland 2, or subtitled Zombieland 2 Double Tap. Alright, let's start off with Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, which is the sequel to Maleficent. So Angelina Jolie stars as this fairy who's taking care of, I guess, Sleeping Beauty, played by Elle Fanning, right? Michelle Pfeiffer is in here playing one of the queen. Juno Temple's here, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Imelda Staunton is in here as well. This movie is by Disney, of course, and the first movie has a 180 million budget, and I think Mistress of Evil is probably going to be around there as well. The first movie has a 69 million opening, went on to make 241 million domestically and 570 million overseas for a worldwide total of 758 million. So we're gonna get a sequel. We're getting a sequel since this movie stars Angelina Jolie, someone who is a box office draw. So how will a Mistress of Evil do at the box office? The first movie is not that well reviewed, relatively speaking, right? Only 58% on the tomato meter, but it pulled in a lot of money worldwide. And for Mistress of Evil, we're getting to the meat of the Sleeping Beauty storyline, but from the perspective of the, Jolie's character, right? Instead of from, the prince or from Sleeping Beauty's POV, right? So how will Mistress of Evil do? As we know, sequels don't usually open higher than the previous movie. And, with the exception that, if it's very well, reviewed, people love the first movie, they wanted to see more. The question is, do people want to see more of kind of like this Sleeping Beauty tale from the perspective of the evil fairies perspective? Well, I guess the first movie show that people want to watch this type of movie, but do they want more? That is the question. That's always a question with sequels. So it's like, do people want more? And I guess they're betting on Disney saying they want more. So going by that measure, I think Mistress of Evil will probably open somewhere in the 55 to 60 million range this weekend. Okay, up next is Zombieland Double Tap. Woody Harrelson, Emma Stone, Jesse Eisenberg, Abigail Breslin. They're back for the sequel 10 years later. The first movie was released back in 2009, and 10 years later they got all the people back together. The stars, the director, the writer, they're all back for Zombieland 2. And the first Zombieland is very well reviewed, 90% on the tomato meter, open to 25 million, which is actually pretty good for an unknown quantity, right? It went on to gross 75 million domestically and additional 27 million overseas for a worldwide total of 102 million. Budget back then is 24. They doubled the budget for Zombieland 2, 42 million, since everyone's bigger, the star power is brighter, more zombies, more gunfights, more cars. Right. So from all indications, Zombieland is more like a beloved movie. Again, like as with Mistress of Evil, do people want to see more, right? I think so. The first movie is kind of beloved. Like I said, they 10 years. Wow, it's a long time for some movies. That's a death knell, right? The times have come and gone. But these characters like Woody Harrelson, these actors, Woody Harrelson, Emma Stone, Jesse Eisenberg, Abigail Breslin, right? Zoe Dutch, is that her name? Yep, Dutch. They're all back. Luke Wilson is here. So they got more. I guess Zombieland 2 Double Tap is. I guess a word to describe this is more. They're giving you more of what you love in the first movie, and for people who love the first movie, 10 years later, they're coming back for a reunion, and I think they'll bring back the fans for this one, maybe some new ones as well. So the first movie had an open of 25 million. I think Zombieland 2 is probably going to open somewhere in the 20 to 25 million range. Could be higher, I don't know, but I'm going to go with 20 to 25 million open for Zombieland 2. All right, so that's it for this podcast. Tune in next time to see how I did. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.